actually gonna write down cake thumbnail and post-it note it right below the camera so I don't forget again. Hi friends, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be doing a recap of all of the books that I read in January. Usually I do a TBR with this as well, but I don't know what I'm reading next month. So we'll talk about some of the options, but I read 9 books this month. I got a new Notion reading journal summary recap thing. I'll link it below, but let's go to some of the January notes. So I had 2 1-stars, 1 2-star, 1 3-star, and 1 2 3 4 5 4-stars. So no 5-star reads, and 2 1-star and a 2-star. I hate giving negative reviews to books. I hate it, but unfortunately today is going to be a little bit of a negative Nelly situation, I fear, with 2 books. Okay, anyways, the first book that I at least finished in January was the second Crescent City book, House of Sky and Breath. For as much as I love these books, I truly and genuinely can never remember the names. I just say Crescent City 1 and 2. What do I even say? If you watch my, I think it was the going through all of my books video, I finished it while I was filming that and I was sobbing. So I gave this book 4.5 stars. I love this world that she has created in Crescent City, and I love these characters. And when this video comes out, the 3rd Crescent City book will have come out a couple days ago, so I'm probably reading that. I can't decide if I like this better than the first book. One issue that I have with series is, well, it's not really an issue, but my take on it is the first book in a lot of series, including Crescent City, is a perfect story. The first Crescent City is a perfect self-contained story, and I'm glad that there's more. Believe me, between how good this was and the amalgamation of everything that's gonna happen in the next book, I am very, 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 very excited for it. But the first one didn't really end on a cliffhanger. It ended on the fun's about to start type of thing, you know, which is fun and cute, but also it was just a perfectly contained story. It's the same thing I say about Mistborn or Chronicles of Narnia. The first books in those series could have been standalones. I'm also writing in-depth reviews now. I'm posting them on my Goodreads and my Bookstagram, so I'll just give you a summary now, but if you want my in-depth spoiler thoughts, that's where you can find them. This world was so confusing in the first Crescent City. I'm hoping I have time before the next book comes out to not reread the first one, but I didn't annotate it at all because I started reading it on vacation and I didn't have any of my stuff with me. But it was so difficult to get my mind around the world. I don't know if I thought it would be more similar to ACOTAR, but if you read it, it's they have phones and technology and stuff. But it's a big world that she created, and I understood the big plot points, but it got even bigger, kind of, because it's all in Crescent City, all of the events that happen in the book to the characters, but the ensemble gets even bigger, or we get more in depth. For example, one of my new favorite characters, it's Ethan. From the first book, it's Connor's brother, but he even gets some POVs in this book, and I'm obsessed with him. I love him, and I forgive him. Bryce in this book, if you know me, you know I have an ACOTAR tattoo. Feyre is my favorite female character of all time. I'm obsessed with her. Rhysand and Cassian, listen. Bryce is up there with Feyre for me after this book. The first one, she was great as well, but after reading this one, I just am obsessed with her. They're pretty different characters too, their personality, I think they would get along, but they're kind of different. But oh my God, I can't, I'm gonna talk about this for way too long. I can't even, oh my God. He's up there with Rhysand, for sure. You know who else is up there and who, it's hard for me to pick favorite characters when there's such a big well written ensemble. But I think my favorite character immediately coming out of the book is Rune. I'm obsessed with him. This is kind of a comment on both of the books in the series, and probably like the only negative I can think of right now, other than it being kind of confusing. There were a lot of great plot twists in the second book, but like half of them in the second book and almost all of them in the first book was like a Danica reveal. And it feels like a plot device. It feels kind of lazy. Like, I lost track of how many chapters ended with because Danica budada, you know? Or because Danica's budada was budada. And I was like, it makes me question if her and Bryce were even that good of friends, which I guess is part of the plot because Bryce is questioning that too, but it makes me kind of sad because I feel like they're almost like shitting on her memory, you know? And it makes me sad. Anyways, I've spent a third of my camera's filming time on that book. So moving on. The next book I read was It Happened One Fight by Maureen Lee Lenker. This was actually on my January TBR. Most of these were not. I think 3 of these were. I gave this book 3.5 stars. This is about 2 40s movie stars, and they're like enemies because at one point they were like out on a date for like a PR stunt type of thing, but then like it got like real, but then she thinks that he like called the paparazzi on them and like she felt embarrassed and stuff. And she also doesn't believe in love because of her parents and her sister bad experiences. But they have to film one more movie together for their contract. And they find out when she gets engaged to another movie star that a prank that he pulled basically ended up with them being legally married. So they've been legally married for like a couple of years now. So they decide to film the film in Reno. No, they don't. They film it in New Mexico because you can get a divorce after like 6 weeks of residency there. But then, you know, they spend a lot of time together. And it's really, really cute. Third act breakup is one of the reasons that it wasn't rated any higher for me. I listen, I understand a third act breakup, and honestly, most of the time I don't mind it, but this one was bad. This one was the type of bad. This is very much like if you know, you know. But if you watched the movie In Affair to Remember, that like third act breakup with the Empire State Building, communicate, people. You know, it's upsetting. All right. Next, I finished the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. So, The Ballad of Never After, I gave 4.5 stars. I loved this book. it is. Lord. This is the best book in the trilogy to me, which is weird because I usually hate like the middle books in a trilogy. But there was so much of Jax and Evangeline in this book. There was like a good amount of plot. The reason it's so high and the reason that it's not 5 stars both have to do with the ending. So like kind of minor spoilers, I guess, for the next like 10 seconds. I can't handle memory loss. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate memory loss. I think it's stupid. I think it's a waste of everybody's time. And I hate it. But then also the nothing is of equal value to me sent me. So it was very, very, very good. And I loved Chaos's plot. His whole storyline in this was very good. Lala is on my shit list. She's in my burn book. I don't understand her high and mighty over Jax when she behaves the way that she does. If you know, you know, but she drives me bonkers. Then I read A Curse for True Love, and I just want to say that the cover of this, The Ballad of the Archer and the Fox, shut up. This makes me want to cry that this is like the cover of the book. Anyways, I gave this book 2 stars. I was so disappointed in this book. I was so upset. It was so anticlimactic. There was like none of the main couple in it. I told you, listen, memory loss, I hate. We all know, right, that it's gonna come back. That's why the book's here. So why are you wasting my time and your time? I am now going to list some of my questions that I had finishing this book that were never answered, so there might be minor spoilers. If time didn't take Evangeline's memories, then what did it take from Jax? I don't understand. Where's Marisol? Where's Luce? What's up with Lala and Chaos? What is with the goddamn apples? I could not believe that they threw that in my face. They threw it in my face. Also, Aurora is like a villain in here, and she plays like way too big of a role for somebody who was just introduced, and I didn't understand her motives at all. And I felt like Apollo's character like shifted out of the blue. Like, that was one of my like critiques of like the live action Beauty and the Beast, is that Luke Evans Gaston, like, he was a turd, but like he was kind of fun. Like, he wasn't really that bad of a person. And then when he went out into the woods with Maurice, he just snapped. And it didn't make any sense to me. And that's how I feel about Apollo in this book. Was like, the one thing I could count on this whole time was that he was going to do the right thing because he's a sweetheart. And then all of a sudden he's like, what? So I was very upset with that ending, and I'm rewriting it in my head. All right, the next one is my first 1 star. Listen, I usually don't give books 1 stars unless I don't finish them, or I have to like force myself to finish them. But I took this book personally. Like, okay, it's Never by Jessa Hastings. And I'm so upset. I love Peter Pan. I love the Disney version. I love the original book. I have like almost a Peter Pan shrine of like merch that I have, and like a Lego set and a hat with my name on it. Like, I love Peter Pan. So I was so excited for this book, even though it is Jessa Hastings, and I hated Magnolia Parks, but the writing was pretty. So I was like, maybe it won't make me as angry. Wrong. Okay. So the whole plot line is that her name is Daphne. She's Wendy's granddaughter. All the girls in her family get picked up by Peter Pan when they're like 14, and they go for a little bit and then they come back. And he never comes for her. She is in the summer. She's 17, and she's in the summer of the year before her freshman year of college, and she doesn't give a shit about boys or Peter, and she's just excited to go become a geologist. Or that's at least how we're introduced to her character and how she behaves for the first 10 pages. Then Peter shows up, and he's like aged himself, so he looks like he's like 20, 21, and he's hot. Oh, God, I can't. At first, I love the portrayal of Peter Pan because it just is his character to be charming, and like when his attention's on you, you feel like you're the only person in the world, but then he'll forget about you 10 seconds later. It's like the curse of the darlings, you know? Like, I expected that. And then she also meets Jem. Jeremy? What even is his real name? His real name's Jameson. Okay. She meets Jameson Hook, who is Hook's son. And he is like 22, and he's hot, and he is... I'm trying not to give spoilers. But one of the plot lines is that he is going to wait for her 18th birthday to do anything with her, and like, fair enough, except he keeps like counting it down, and it's kind of weird, and it's one of those things where I'm like, why didn't you move her birthday like 2 months so this isn't so weird? But then also, she's doing stuff with Peter, and Peter's like 500. So, and then also, the way that she like forgives and forgets things that Peter has done, but then things that Jameson does that is so much less, she takes so seriously. And there's this whole plot line of you can like drop off your baggage, Lord above. And there's so many like plot lines that never get revisited. Like, her mom is an archaeologist, and her mom wasn't really there when she was growing up. And her mom told Wendy that this is the most important search of her life or something. And it never got brought back up. I thought she was going to be like looking for the Fountain of Youth or something, or looking for Neverland. But when this book ended, I wanted to throw it across the room. And the more I thought about it, the more angry I got. There's just so many loose ends. And Daphne's character was not a headstrong female character like she was promised to be. The way that she behaved was honestly humiliating for women everywhere. I didn't like Peter Pan in this book. And to be honest, that doesn't bug me because he's kind of unlikable sometimes. Like that's why he's such an intriguing character. But it's like don't let a man treat you that way. You see how he's treating you. You see how he's treating other women. Oh my gosh, it makes me crazy. This was me giving Jessa Hastings a second chance, and I don't think I'm gonna give her a third because I can't. I mean, the cover's pretty. I honestly like. I had to remind myself this book is pretty. This book is pretty, so I didn't throw it across the room when I finished reading it, and I gave it 2 stars when I finished. But then I kept thinking about it, and it got worse. Then I read You with a View by Jessica Joyce. I gave this book 4 stars. It's the one about a girl whose grandmother dies, and she finds these love letters from a guy who wasn't her grandpa. So she had like this big romantic story that ended in heartbreak when she was younger, and she puts out a TikTok showing the photos of her grandma and the mystery man, and gets a comment from like one of those user blah, 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 accounts. It's like, that's my grandpa. And so she messages back and forth with this guy, and they decide, and he lives in the area, and so he's like, let me bring my grandpa and we'll meet you at this coffee shop. She shows up, and it's her high school rival who is like super successful. Like he was in the Forbes whatever business thing. She keeps coming over to the grandpa's house to learn more about the story, and finds out that they were going to do a road trip throughout like Zion, Grand Canyon, those types of places for their honeymoon after they eloped. But they called off the elopement, so they didn't do the honeymoon. And so she decides, hey, if it's okay with you, can I take this map? I want to go on the road trip. Like, I just want to go experience it. And the grandpa says, yes, can I come? And she's like, sure. And then he goes, Theo, you should come with us, take some time off of work. And it's clear that Theo's having some like issues with work. So they all go on a road trip. So it's forced proximity. It's both of them like connecting to their grandparents a lot. It's a great love story, but similar to Beach Read, the subplot of like grief isn't just overlooked or fixed by the relationship. It's something that's like deeply explored, and it's so heartfelt and sweet, and I loved this book. Also, look at that cover. And I was almost surprised that I liked it because I have like a personal like preference against like TikTok and Instagram in books. I don't know why. It takes me out of it, but the way that she wrote it, especially with like the girl being a photographer or aspiring photographer, made it make sense. So. Next, I read Sable Peak. I gave this book 4 stars. I would give the Eden series 5 stars. I love this whole series. I'm so sad it's over, but I was really looking forward to Mateo's book. And I was not disappointed. So the couple in this one is the last sibling. I don't think is he the youngest? The sibling who hasn't had a book yet, Mateo, who went to Alaska during some of the other books to fly and came back, didn't really tell anybody why, and is just kind of like working on the farm in the hotel. And the girl is Vera, who in the last book, this is like a big spoiler for the last book, so if you haven't read it, but is, okay. One of the sisters fell in love with Vance. Vance is a cop whose ex-partner murdered his wife and daughters, but Vera, the daughter of the killer guy, is still alive and with him as he fled and was like living in the mountains. And in the last book, Vance was hunting for him because he was really close with the daughters and the wife as well, and like wants revenge. Finds out that what actually happened was that the wife drowned the 2 daughters, and Vera was just able to swim away. And then the dad killed the mom, and then they ran away. And he took Vera with him, and Vera decides to go with Mateo and moves to the Eden Ranch, is living like in the loft. Good Lord. I'm telling you, it's a whole thing, and you kind of have to read the whole series to make it make sense. But I was a little bit not concerned, but like curious how she was going to write Vera's character because of what I just said. She has such an in-depth backstory for being barely introduced in the last book, whereas all the other characters have been introduced. This is the sixth book in the series. So, but it was really, really well done, and it's a single father slow burn trope. I loved the way she wrote this slow burn because if you know me, you know I hate a slow burn. Drives me crazy. But the way she wrote it was like it would skip a lot of time at a time until it like reached a head. And I was able to like understand and process and get to the point where I was like, okay, this has been a long time coming, you know? But not like, come on now. We'll make something happen. Da da da. And I loved them. I love their individual characters. I love how they explored like themselves individually. And again, none of the subplots were fixed by being in a relationship with the other person. I love it. Devin Perry is one of the only people who can write kids into her stories and make me not hate it. Because she also had a kid in Juniper Hill, which is probably my favorite of the Eden series. There's a single mom in that one. The other ones I have on my Kindle, Done and Dusted, I read in a day, in a sitting. We were watching the football games, and I was like, you know, I really need to read this because it's been on my Kindle forever. I gave it 4.5 stars. I love it. I will be buying the actual cover probably when the second book comes out. I'll just go grab both of them physical copy because the cover is gorgeous. The name Clementine Ryder might be the best fictional name I've ever heard in my life. I love it. I love that name. And they call her Emmy. And I'm obsessed. I love it. So it's a like my brother's best friend romance. So like her older brother's best friend who was like kind of like adopted into their family basically because he had a rough home life, but they drove each other crazy growing up, but not in the way that pisses me off where it's like you guys clearly hate each other, just in the way of like he came from a broken home, like it was bad where he was, so obviously he wasn't very open, and also he was a few years older, so like my best friend's younger sister, like they don't talk that much. She gets really badly injured riding. She competes riding. She does barrel courses. And she's like ridiculously good at it. But she breaks up with her boyfriend and moves back home like randomly. And oh my gosh, her brothers, I'm obsessed. She has an older brother named August and a other brother named Weston, who they call Wes and Gus. And this is like living in like the small cabin on the property. She finds out that Luke owns the bar. Luke is the boy. Luke Brooks is the boy. And he also works on the farm teaching like horse riding lessons. And basically when it starts for them is when she goes to tend to her horse and starts having a panic attack, and he helps her through it, and he's the only one that knows about her struggles there. And then they kind of like he like teaches her how to ride a horse again, and it's precious. Here are the reasons it's not 5 stars. 1, I love brother's best friend, but I hate when the brother finds out and he's like aggressive and violent about it. Like I get feeling a little bit like betrayed. Oddly enough, one of my least favorite fictional characters, Ross Geller, handled it much better with Chandler and Monica. I always look at that as like, that's how you should react. Like, oh, this is serious? Great, I love you both. You know, Gus really disappointed me there. The second reason also has to do a little bit with Gus, where I like when, listen, I like when the author sets up couples for the next book, but my God, way too much. Last book I read is a 1-star read. I feel personally victimized by this book because I DNF'd it at like 40%. And then I read reviews and it had like a lot of good reviews. So I was like, maybe if I just push through, but no. So this is All Downhill with You by Julie Olivia. It's about a girl who works at Honeywood. She works at Honeywood and she was injured by a roller coaster twice. One time a piece broke off and like hit her. And the second time she was riding it and the wheel popped off and she was like crushed in the thing and now she has like metal in her hip and she can't run anymore, stuff like that. She is suing the roller coaster company. Also, the roller coaster company, kind of like a PR move, is sending the guy who created the coaster to the park to redo the coaster, like completely create a new one, basically. And they're the couple. When both of your lawyers suggest maybe don't talk to each other, maybe don't talk to each other. First, when I DNF'd it, the reason was it was too slow of a slow burn and she was genuinely mean. And she wasn't mean anywhere else. Like, it was obvious that she's like a sweet person, like a sweet, bubbly person. But with him, she was unnecessarily awful. And she would even say, like, I can tell there's something else going on. But then she wouldn't, like, give him any grace for that. And just miscommunication tropes. And I just didn't like them as a couple at all. The review I wrote down was just no comment because and I'm really upset because the next book was like the fiction between us and it's about like it was set up way too much again. But there's like all these couples that are like going to be brought to fruition, but I just couldn't. I can't. I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I hate when I hate books, but I hated this book. And it actually sent me into a little bit of a reading slump. Like, I haven't read anything since, and I finished it like a couple days ago, which is a long time for me to go without starting a new book. So those are all the books that I read in January, all 9, and I'll probably just mood read in February. So those will be random, but we shall see. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.